everyone. Did you see this video when it first came out? If you saw it, the link you saw it on is now deleted. YouTube deleted it. There's a backup and the link is in the description here, but it's very interesting. They use public data to prove that the death rate of this in the West is much lower than is being talked about widely. And they're two doctors, they're on the front lines, blah, 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 blah. I watched it when it first came out. It's notable because how much power do you want YouTube to have? How much power do you want Google to have? Right? I mean, everyone's carrying around a hot mic tied right to Google right now. And if you don't know how the things like Siri and the Google Assistant work, I'll tell you, it takes because your phone doesn't have the computer power to have an AI that can understand human speech yet, right? It's not powerful enough. So they send quick little snippets. They use the internet to send snippets back to a mainframe that can understand the human speech. And that's how it gets the data, right? So if you go into your Google account, there are little snippets of your speech recorded. So it knows how you speak. It knows what you sound like. So it can more easily discern what you're saying. But if you think that there aren't other recordings of maybe everything you're saying as you're walking around talking to people and talking about ladders or home improvement or how you need some new dishes or a new dishwasher or a new microwave, and then all of a sudden those ads start showing up, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, right? So how much power do you want this company to have? They have a lot already, right? But now they're taking down doctors who are experts, who are sharing their expert opinion on a platform that's supposed to be kind of like the public square, kind of like where people can have a conversation that matters, right? If a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to hear it, does the tree fall or does it matter, right? If a person's screaming the truth on a street corner but nobody hears it, does it matter, right? If the YouTube video with 5 million hits gets deleted and nobody can access it and nobody can talk about what it says, does it have an impact? Does it matter? It's interesting, right? Like, so there it goes. The tree's fallen in the forest and well, does it matter? There are backups, but unless you're backing up offline, and there are many who are, the backups can be scrubbed with time, right? I mean, look at how history has changed since the 1940s, right? The Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, there were some truths. And then through history, those truths have been forgotten and changed, and history books changed, and everybody's acclimatized to what our world teaches as history. There are lots, I think there's a lot more to a lot of the stories that we take for granted. And that's interesting to consider too. And the censorship here is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the easiest to see. Right? It's very, very interesting. We live in interesting times. Here's RCMP. This is kind of a mishmash to start us off. RCMP is boosting social media mining for threats ranging from disease to shootings. You know what's funny to me? We have regular shootings in Toronto now. Like regular shootings. I wake up most mornings and there's a shooting in Toronto or a stabbing in Toronto. Even now under lockdown. I wonder how much they've been fined. They haven't been fined. But it seems to me that, and this happened in the United Kingdom, and I watched it happen probably 2012, 2013. The police went online and they stopped doing anything offline. It became more of a crime to say something mean on Twitter to a specific group or to a few specific groups, depending. And if you had kind of the overall tone of being mean to said groups, then you would get a visit from the local police, which is just wild, right? And it looks like, and while we watched grooming gangs flourish, while we watched violence and crime flourish, and I mean, it's not like the United Kingdom has been crime free for a long, long time, right? I used to go to England when I was younger, and they had locks, and every house had an alarm and multiple locks on the doors, and walled gardens and walled front gardens, right? Like most of my relatives had gates into their homes, right? Like gates into the driveway. So I mean, it's like I said, it's not exactly, it doesn't help when the police stop policing the real world in favor of speech online that is not to their liking. I digress. Back to the article. Canada's National Police Force wants a digital tool to harvest data from a sweeping variety of online sources to provide early information on threats such as disease outbreaks and mass shootings. The software would allow RCMP officers to quickly mine data about a person's internet activities, from an emoji posted on Facebook to an illicit firearm purchase on the so-called dark web. The RCMP contract tender says social media and other publicly available information will be used to identify threats and assess public concerns. The application would also help identify brewing public relation issues and help with decision making in a crisis or major event setting. The tender says the tool should include a dashboard which reports on breaking news, mass casualty events, terrorist attacks, disease outbreaks, and natural disasters. Yes, those disasters at sea bear special mention. So I don't agree with this tool. I know it's saying that they're going to use it in real life, but it's a very slippery slope. Quick and slippery slope to start using it in everyday online policing, right? Oh, can't have that on Facebook. Time to move it. Okay, yesterday as I was going to bed, I saw this, and this is from yesterday's briefing. Here's a question on seniors, and here's Justin Trudeau leaving no question where his priorities are. Note, it's not seniors. Okay, here we go.
Ryan Mullen, Global News. One of the groups still feeling isolated and vulnerable are seniors. Many have had to absorb an extra cost of delivery services on a fixed income. Others have to pay additional dispensing fees at the pharmacy. Last week you said help was coming. How much longer will seniors have to wait?
We knew that moving forward on replacing people who lost and were counting on their paychecks through COVID-19 was the priority. And that's why we moved forward with the CERB and the wage subsidy, which launches today. We then recognized that students who often start their summer jobs in early May after finishing their term at post-secondary education needed help as well, which is why we're moving forward on that. Seniors are also facing a tremendous level of vulnerability because of COVID-19. It is health vulnerability, it is being isolated further, challenges around mental health and isolation, and difficulty sometimes getting groceries and getting the supports they need. We have moved forward on a number of things to ensure that they get supports, but we're also looking at further supports specifically for the most vulnerable low-income seniors who are truly challenged.
Can you outline some of the options that you're looking at?
As I said, we're looking at things like supports for the most vulnerable seniors who are seeing extra costs because of COVID-19, and we will keep working on that and have more to say soon.
So no definitive answer, but lots and lots of words, and basically, what's the word? Justifying his current spending. And the current spending was giving the United Way a bunch of money, I think it was $9 million, to feed low-income seniors, but no bump on anybody's income, right? Despite the fact that there is an increase at the grocery stores, like food costs more, is more difficult to get, takes more time to get, and if they had a side job, probably the side job was something in service, so either they're putting themselves at risk, so they have to stop, or they're at higher risk. So I don't know. This isn't great in my opinion. I think this is a miscalculation from Trudeau, but basically saying these are the reasons. And I think that the reason he's explaining it is because Canadians usually go with that, right? Canadians are great for a good explanation, right? Oh, you can explain yourself? Okay then, eh? But I think that this is wearing thin, and I don't think that these daily conferences are having the effect that Trudeau was hoping that they'd have. He didn't have one on the last Sunday or the other day. He skipped one, and I don't know. I think that there's cracks showing in this plan, and I think people are getting fed up with the lack of a plan. Here's the article based on that, and I'm not going to read it because it basically just says everything that Trudeau just said. Here's Ezra Levent, and he says, well, he shared this from a documentary of Theresa Tam. So this is our public health officer, and so this is what she thinks or what she thought in 2010 of a pandemic and using tracking and other items currently at her disposal. This makes me uncomfortable. Here's what Ezra said. He said, you could track people, put bracelet on their arms. She said, that's Theresa Tam, Trudeau's public health advisor, who starred in a government documentary about pandemics, forced vaccinations, and detention centers. So it's a concerning aspect of this documentary. The documentary was from 2010, and here it is.
It's one of the worst case scenarios in terms of an infectious disease outbreak, in that their cooperation is sought. If there are people who are non-compliant, there are definitely laws and public health powers that can quarantine people in mandatory settings. is potential. You could track people, put bracelets on their arms, have police and other setups to ensure quarantine is undertaken.
The end of the clip kind of, she says, it's so serious, blah, 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 blah. But that's concerning, right? That's concerning. Well, she's talking about early action. I'll let the clip run out and then I'll show you the next story.
It is better to be preemptive and precautionary and take the heat of people thinking you might be overreactionary, get ahead of the curve, and then think about whether you've overreacted later. But it's such a serious situation that I think decisive early action is the key.
Decisive early action. Well, she had the opportunity to show us exactly what she would do. And what did she do? What did she do? Well, here's the CBC Politics tweet from 16 hours ago that says, was it perfect? No. Theresa Tam discusses Canada's early pandemic response. And I mean, pretty much everybody understands that Canada has been slow to respond. We still haven't stopped flights, not stopping flights from infected areas. Apparently, viruses don't understand borders, but Taiwan's got things figured out, and so does South Korea. They instituted travel bans early and a mask protocols for being out in public. Number 2, mask protocols. Mask protocols weren't updated until last week. Up until last week, Ms. Tam was saying, no, masks aren't necessary. Don't wear a mask unless you're around an infected individual. It's so strange. And the mask isn't to protect yourself. The mask is to protect other people. If you cough and the mask holds all of your droplets in, then you're not spreading droplets all over everywhere, right? Whereas if you don't wear a mask and you cough everywhere, then, right? So it seems like her deficient advice, her slow movement on closing borders, on recommending masks, on doing something about long-term care homes, I mean, all sorts of deficient actions, all sorts of inaction has led to the disaster that we're in now. And it's so interesting to see how she was saying that early decisive action is the key. And also talking about like tracking people with bracelets, etc. Very concerning because it plays to where her head's at about how to contain this stuff. And I mean, if Taiwan and South Korea can open their economies with masks and no tracking, why is Canada saying vaccines and tracking? Vaccines and I mean, it seems like they had a plan. Moving on. 680 News is reporting the Canadian Medical Association has called for greater government transparency about the available supply of protective equipment in light of a new survey that suggests more respondents have seen no improvements in the last month. Shocker, right? A lot of the masks that have been sent, a lot of the PPE that has been sent from China has been deficient, and they're ordering more from China. So, and it's across the world, right? It's not like it's not like China is just sending deficient equipment to Canada. They're sending deficient equipment everywhere. But Canada's smart enough to keep ordering it. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. CTV News, I thought this was the strangest story ever. Allergies are COVID. Experts say symptoms differ, but best to take precautions. Okay. The symptoms of COVID-19 are high fever, there's a distinct cough, and flu-like symptoms. Allergies don't necessarily have coughs. They have stuffy noses. And if you have allergies, generally you kind of know, right? And an allergy pill takes the effects away usually, or maybe 2 if you've got really bad allergies. This is just irresponsible fear-mongering, in my opinion. It's just weird, and I'm going to show it to you because that's what I do. Here it is. Allergies are COVID. Huh. You feel a sneeze coming on or a tickle in your throat and the alarm bells start ringing in your head. Really? Oh no, I might be sick. Is it seasonal allergies or is it the beginnings of a COVID-19 infection? That's exactly what I think. Every morning I'm like, yep, I don't have COVID-19. Back to this. While springtime pollen can cause sneezing, wheezing, and watery eyes in allergy sufferers, a Toronto allergist says it's best to take precautions if seasonal symptoms start presenting like those more common in COVID-19 cases. Quote, there's a real risk here, or at least a real temptation to try to minimize symptoms and brush them off and say, well, it's only allergy, let's see how things go, says Dr. Peter Vadas, excuse me if I've got that wrong, the head physician at the Allergy and Immunology Clinic at St. Michael's Hospital. But if it turns out it's not an allergy and you've been out and about potentially spreading this infection around, you've done an enormous disservice to the public and to yourself. So more Get in your house, you. But isn't it weird? Like this is just a strange. COVID-19 and allergies, I don't think are analogous really in any way. And they talk about how COVID-19 is caused by a virus and allergies are caused by like hay fever. They're very different. Blah 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 blah. It's just fear porn. It's just trying to make people afraid. And I mean, we don't need to be afraid of more than our bylaw officers. We're almost done. Okay, here's global news, and they put a thread together, and I thought, this is just wild. Like, welcome to post-national Canada, right? You're not allowed to rollerblade. If you throw a flaming log on a railroad track in front of police officers, nothing will happen to you. But if you go rollerblading and you ignore this bylaw, you are done, sir. You are going to get a big fine. Money, lots of money. And if you lost your job and you're just trying to look after your kids, I don't care. How dare you be outside? Here we go. To date, hundreds of Canadians have been fined for breaking bylaws put in place due to the coronavirus pandemic. Here's a closer look at who's being fined and what their infraction was. Fines, snitch lines, crack down on coronavirus rule breakers. I'm just going to go through the thread here, okay? A group of kids playing basketball in Peterborough, Ontario received a $750 fine for failing to adhere to social distancing rules. This is back on March 30th. Police warned them they couldn't because there were more than 5 of them. Some left but later returned and kept playing. How dare you ignore a police officer? How dare you? Here's a $750 fine. An Ipsos poll shows that 85% of Canadians support stricter physical distancing laws and high fines. Here's how much a 16-year-old boy was fined for failing to practice social distancing. I read that just because I wanted you to notice. Everybody else is okay with it. Do you know one of the best ways to encourage people to file their taxes on time? A droplet that says their neighbor, like a leaflet, a drop in their mail. It's a drop that says that their neighbors all file on time. It increases it by something like threefold. It's crazy. That's in a Malcolm Gladwell book. I can't remember which one, but it's a Malcolm Gladwell book. I'm getting that reference from. But look at that positioning, right? Your neighbors agree. 85% of Canadians agree. Overwhelming support. 39% of people maybe agree on a majority prime minister. 39%. If you get 43% in Canada, that is a huge majority, and everybody walking around is pretty happy, right? And 85%, unheard of. This is Canadian politics, unheard of. Yes. Find all those evil people playing basketball. Those 16-year-olds, they should be fined. It's so weird. It's so weird positioning, guys. Okay, back to this. If you test positive for COVID-19 and fail to comply with self-isolation orders, you could face hefty fines, as is the case with this Regina woman. Here she is. A Regina woman tested positive for the coronavirus but failed to self-isolate. Public Health in Saskatchewan informed the local police, who tracked her down. $2,800 fine. Thinking about using local park amenities to do a workout, one Toronto man is facing a hefty fine after doing so, $880 here. Toronto man went for a run on April 14th. When he stopped to do chin-ups, a bylaw officer told him he shouldn't be using the chin-up bar because park amenities were closed. He was probably like, okay, officer, but can you just grab a picture of me doing this so I can put it on the newspaper? Thanks, because this is dumb. Yes, park. It's closed. Here's an $880 fine. How dare you? And he wasn't even violating social distancing. He was just using a park chin-up bar. I wonder if he was doing it on the side of a building or something like that. Would that have been okay? Anyway, back to this. These are fines that some people, quote, literally cannot afford, says Michael Bryant, who's the executive director of the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. Here it is. Here's another one. People experiencing homelessness in Hamilton, Ontario, and Montreal are being dinged for failing to physically distance, according to community organizers. Oh, a fine that somebody gets to pay? I wonder who's going to get to pay it. Last one here. A Newfoundland woman was arrested not once but twice for failing to comply with self-isolation orders and received a significant fine as a result. Here she is. A Corner Brook, Newfoundland woman was arrested on March 24th over allegedly failing to self-isolate after returning from out of province. Newfoundland police released her the next day. However, she was arrested again on March 26th after allegedly failing to self-isolate and charged $5,000. So, if found guilty, I don't know. The rest of them don't say if found guilty. But this is the world we live in. This is it. This is normal currently, guys. And here's the Prime Minister to tell us that normal will never be normal again. Ever again. Here he is.
Normal is something that is a long way off for all of us. And if we want life to get back to the way it was exactly before, it won't. There will be differences, even a few years from now, that we will have learned from dealing with this global pandemic that I think will be important lessons. As we move forward over the coming months, we will be able to see careful reopenings in certain sectors of the economy, certain things being allowed as people try to get back to something a little more like normal.
So, a little more like normal. But the timelines seem very long. I was going to cover Ontario opening as well, but I just don't have the time right now, and we're already at 20 minutes. But I will say this, the Ontario opening doesn't have a timeline, really. It has benchmarks, right? So 2 weeks of lower cases every day, blah, 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 blah. And Ford pushed back on anybody looking for a timeline, basically saying we're doing our best to be as careful as possible, etc. But I feel like there has been ample evidence where continued closure of our economy is potentially as impactful, if not more impactful, than the virus's impact wholesale. So that needs to be weighed in the equation. And I don't know that federally that's happening. I don't know that provincially that's happening. And I don't know that people are even calling for it, right? Everybody's always asked, and Cian Bext made this point. He had some specific questions, but he never gets asked when he's at the press pool here, and shocker, because Trudeau doesn't like them. But nobody's asking questions like that. Nobody's asking like timelines, and nobody's pushing that. They're all asking for more money for specific groups, right? And while that's not all that compelling, it's interesting, maybe a little bit, but it's not all that compelling as far as news goes, right? Handouts aren't what people want. People want to get back to work. There is no replacement, as Pierre Poilievre said, for people going out and producing something. You can't become a 100% consumption society. You can't sit in your house for the next 10 years to be completely safe. It doesn't ever work. It doesn't work. And so we need a plan, not a plan to stay in place. We need a plan to come out of this safely, right? You come out, like I said, we stand on the shoulder of giants, or we should. Look at Taiwan and South Korea, successful places. Somebody yesterday asked me in the comments, why don't you talk about France or the United Kingdom that have similar death rates, or the United States that have similar death rates to us, and blah, 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 blah. And the reason that I didn't mention those places is because they're not giants. They don't have something we can learn. We're clearly all doing a lot wrong, right? In the face of other places with higher populations, Japan, or not Singapore necessarily, but they've got a high population, medium population. But South Korea, right? All of these places that are potentially doing well, Taiwan, are doing something right collectively. They're all doing something similar together, right? So what are we not doing that they are doing? And a couple of those things are masks, a couple of those things are travel restrictions, right? And our leadership refuses to acknowledge that, and instead focuses on answering questions about handouts to specific groups. So that's where the priorities lie, right? That's who the important people are, not the seniors, the people who are going to be dependent on the government even more, because the seniors are already dependent. They don't need to buy them off. The seniors need the money that they're being given. They need more than that, but they can't access it, right? And they're not being included because, well, what else are they going to do, right? There's no recourse for them. What are they going to do? Vote for somebody else, right? They've been brainwashed into believing that everybody else is racist. So, Yahtzee, right? They can safely be ignored. We're going to focus on the most vulnerable seniors, and we're going to give the United Way $9 million. Hope you get your meal, right? Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.com. No, co. Yes, and CanadaPoly.com. Oh, I'm getting them all so mixed up. I apologize. I got to focus on a couple of URLs to do at the end. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.